Podcast Network Asia.
It's not the best at anything, except for maybe the looks.
True, because when you look at it, you can see all the tubes kind of like bend. It flows really well.
Yeah, like
it's one of those things that you just have to see, and if you can see it, it draws you to it. You want to go up to the motorcycle, you want to touch it,
you want to see it,
you want to get on it. Hey folks, this is Caco
and this is Jinno Rufino.
You are listening to Torque of the Town. So last week, Jinno and I were here on Torque of the Town talking about our top 5 list for rides and drives, our favorites from the year of 2020. And we tried to fit everything in one show. Unfortunately, we ran out of time. Now, we were able to go through some of our top 5s. Me, in particular, I was able to go with the Geely Coolray, the Nissan 370Z as 2 of our drives, and the third one rather was the Ford F-150. Now, I had a special mention of the Ford Territory and the Toyota Supra, which leaves me with 2 remaining spots for my top 5 list. And Jinno mentioned just one.
Yeah, so because I mentioned 2 honorable mentions.
Yeah.
The Royal Enfield Interceptor 650, as well as the Vespa 150 Sprint.
And these were honorable mentions, like you mentioned.
Yeah, so the only one that made it on my top 5 was the XSR 155.
That's right.
Because I guess we just talked about them a little bit more than time constraints kind of... Obviously, we enjoy what we do.
Yes, we do,
and we talk about it quite often and a lot.
It's very difficult to narrow it down to a top 5 list, as we have, because as we mentioned in our previous show, we love what we do. We get test units. We get them for quite some time to drive them or ride them wherever it is that we want, to get as much feedback from it as possible, and then do the reviews for AutoDeal.com.ph and MotoDeal.com.ph, and then we come out on our videos that you guys have probably seen on YouTube, which we thank you for subscribing to our videos, to our channels, by the way. But if you do enjoy our videos, do consider subscribing to them, because like I always say, we do enjoy creating them just for you.
Absolutely.
Now, this morning we are going to continue with our list, and we're gonna throw it over to Jinno to continue his list. So you've got one of your top 5 favorites for 2020
that I mentioned in the last episode, and I'm going to start out this episode by mentioning a bike that I was really surprised with, because when I first saw the bike, I was like, ew, pangit.
Really?
Yeah.
You actually put something that you immediately thought as ew, ang pangit, into your top 5.
Yes, 100%.
This is interesting.
But I say that because I'm not really a big adventure bike type of person.
Admit it. Is it because you and I are short and you can barely reach it? Come on, tell the truth.
No. Although the seat height is usually a problem for me when it comes to adventure bikes.
Yeah.
But it's really primarily because I just don't like the way they look. Like it's just, the style is definitely not to my taste. But because this bike has everything else, it made it to the top 5.
I don't see how you can dislike an adventure bike. I mean, I myself like bikes that are much lower, not because of my height, shut up, but it's because they look better. But something like an adventure bike that looks like it can climb any mountain. Yeah. Like if it wanted to bring the Von Trapps from one side of a mountain to the other, you can go back and pick up all 17 million of them.
And that's the beauty of adventure bikes, right? Because I always say that with riding a motorcycle, it's not just about the destination, it's about the journey.
Man, you gotta get a new line, man.
but with adventure bikes, it's not just about, it's about the destination as well, because you can reach destinations that you can't get on normal bikes or even cars.
That's true. Ewan McGregor, God knows, takes one adventure
They've gone
bike
around the world with adventure bikes.
That's true.
And so the adventure bike that I've chosen to land in the top 5, specifically because I rode this, right?
Okay.
I test rode it in 2020. So there's no GS 1250 here because I have yet to ride that, and I didn't get to ride that in 2020.
That's a beast.
We were supposed to ride that, but then the lockdown happened the week of the ride.
Aww.
Yeah, unfortunately. So it is actually going to be a bike that is made here in the Philippines, which is also nice to point out.
Oh.
Yeah. So, and because of that, the price is very competitive for what it is. It's below 700,000 pesos for a 750cc bike.
That sounds pretty darn good.
It's the KTM 790 Adventure, the standard, not the R, because the R is too tall. And I have to, when I ride that and there's the traffic light, I need one butt cheek off the seat so that I can reach the ground. So you can imagine, Manila traffic is kind of difficult on the R. But the standard is perfect.
I'm looking at a photo right now, and that thing.
It's a bike that you can take anywhere. It's a bike that I remember riding it on Marilake.
Yeah.
I rode it on NLEX. It rained on us. I did not care. I was like,
no problems.
I can handle this. And I've taken it on light trails, nothing too intense.
Yeah.
Handle it perfectly. But the reason why that bike lands in the top 10, aside from the fact that it's good value for money, is because you can ride that bike around the city and not be super problematic with the size. The GS, the 1250, that will be a little bit of a difficult bike to take around Manila.
Okay.
This bike is fine because the handlebars go over the side mirrors of the cars. So you're kind of like, okay, I'm okay. I can handle this. It's you can filter, but not you can filter with it, but not to the fact that not like with smaller bikes, but you can. So you can take it around the city. You can start, put it this way: you can start riding this bike in the city, and then take it all the way to like Sagada, take it all the way to maybe even trail it up some mountains that you can't get to with a car or other motorcycles. And that's why it's there. It's a huge tank, so you can ride it for a very, very long distance.
Yeah.
The balance of the bike is fantastic. The technology of the bike is great. It has, I would put the slipper clutch on it because the standard doesn't come with a slipper clutch, but quick shifter.
Yeah.
So you should probably you could add that. And it has the beautiful TFT display.
Yeah, I've seen the display in the showroom. Those things rival cars, man.
Yeah.
It's big.
Yeah. It's not quite the TFT display of, let's say, the GS of the BMW, but it's not far, right? It's you're right there. And it's not super extreme like the R, where you can the R is really more, in my opinion, if you lived in Europe or someplace in the States and you want to take that thing super long distances and you want to, and it road less travel type of thing. This one is still manageable for what I would use it for.
It's funny that you say it's manageable, considering the fact that this thing has got a 6-speed gearbox. It's 95 horses. It basically has almost the same output as some smaller automobiles out there.
Yeah.
And yet, the way that you look at this bike, it's like a doomsday device where
that's
right. If everything goes wrong, you know that this bike will still be ready for you. It's like a walkie-talkie or a go bag.
It's one of those bikes that if there was the zombie apocalypse, this is the bike that I want.
Yeah. Not only will it get you where you want to go, it'll run over a couple of zombies on the way too.
And it's got so much, the fuel tank is massive. So you don't need to keep on stopping looking for fuel. So this is the perfect bike for the doomsday situation, if that ever happens, the zombie apocalypse,
another outbreak.
God, maybe with the vaccine, that's where the zombies really will come out. I don't know.
That's true.
But so the only drawback of the bike for me is I just don't like the way it looks.
It's not your cup of tea.
It's not my cup of tea. It really isn't. The seat height's very manageable for me. 5'6", 5'7". It depends on a good day, 5'7". Depending what shoes I wear, could be 5'8". But it's very manageable for somebody that size. And it's one of those bikes that more than meets the eye, I suppose. It would be the best way for me to put it.
Looking at it, I know that you're not a fan of the way that it looks, but The fact that it stands so tall, it looks like it really does have a very commanding presence. And what I want to point out, this is definitely, and I do mean definitely, not a starter bike.
No.
This is for definitely for more experienced riders.
It could be a starter adventure bike.
A starter adventure bike.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm glad you pointed that out.
Yeah. So, but despite it's not that heavy, right? So it's off the top of my head. Maybe I should pull this up for the weight, but it's not that heavy. And it's a bike that's not gonna overwhelm you, despite of for smaller people the size the size factor of the bike.
Okay.
The GS could be a little overwhelming for people out there, for some people.
I think, I've like I said, I've seen this in the showroom, and it's definitely a motorcycle that commands presence.
Yeah.
But it's perfect in the sense that you said it's not overpowering, so to speak.
Yeah.
You it's not like the F-150 where everybody's just gonna get out of the way. It's still an approachable motorcycle, is what it is.
Yeah.
It's not. It doesn't. It doesn't have that much. It has flex.
Yeah.
But it doesn't flex too much that it deters anybody from trying it out, so to speak. And I think that with a doomsday device as this, it gives you a sense of calmness, I guess, if you were to an owner of this bike.
And that's the feeling that I have when I'm riding it. I feel calm. The position that you're in is very comfortable. You can ride the thing around. You can ride it around the country. You can do the Philippine loop with that thing, no problem.
Dude, I gotta ask you, you know that we have troubled roads inside the city, and that's very apparent. But when you go over bumps or potholes in this thing, do you even feel it?
You feel it, but it's not uncomfortable. Like, you can ride through a pothole and be like, okay. Uy, may lubak. Parang baliwala. Like, it's one of those things that parang I could see myself with this bike.
Would you purchase this bike?
That's why I could see it.
You could see it. Okay.
I could totally see it. My drawback is that, when you're on a bike or maybe sometimes a car, and then you see a reflection of yourself.
Yeah.
And you're like, ay, hindi siya maganda. But it has everything else. That's the thing, right? It has. If I was more of a function over style type of person,
definitely,
this is it.
Yeah.
But I am a little shallow, admittedly.
A little vain.
And that's why this is not this makes it to the top 5 but isn't number 1.
But what about the pride factor? The fact that it's made in the country.
And that's another factor that brings it over the top. This bike already would have been a top 5 choice if it was still made in Austria or another place in the world. But the fact that it's built in the Philippines,
gotta love it.
You absolutely have to put it in the top 5. Like, it just, that pride factor is like proudly Philippine made.
What if the livery on this thing was the Philippine flag? Would you be even prouder then?
Absolutely. And that's another thing about it. I know KTM's all about the orange.
Yeah.
Not my favorite color.
You do realize that AutoDeal is orange, right?
Yeah, that's why I like blue better.
You suck.
But I'm just saying, it's not my favorite color. Like, it really isn't. Like, but like, I've seen people paint theirs black. I've seen people, but it's just me, right? I'm a more neutral person when it comes to my preference of colors. That's why my bike's black.
Yeah. Okay.
Most of my gear is black.
True. But again, if this bike had the livery of the Philippine flag,
absolutely.
Yeah.
Like, that'd
be cool as a special edition.
Right? Philippine made. KTM, if you're listening, to the Ayalas, if you guys are listening, this is something you might want to consider. Like, have a Philippine edition of the KTM 790 Adventure.
You could call it the Rufino edition.
Nux.
The Jinno edition.
The Tirona.
No, that doesn't have the same ring. It just doesn't. See, if you say Tirona or Caco anywhere near a motorcycle, it'd be like a monkey.
Yeah, like a monkey. But this was my choice over the Duke 790, which is also a nice bike. But only because, even though I like the look of the Duke more, but it's just because I can do more with this than the Duke. The Duke's more aggressive. It's faster, even though it's the same engine. It does ride faster. It's a little bit more aggressive.
Which is more nimble.
The Duke, definitely. The
Okay.
Duke 790. But this one, because I live in the Philippines,
Yeah.
and there are times that you'd probably want to get, even though they're not maybe not that often, you want to go on the road less traveled, the places that will not allow, or not maybe not allow. You can technically take a bike anywhere, but it depends on the skill level of the rider.
Yeah.
And your wheels, of course.
Yeah.
But this bike is a very capable bike to go off road and bring you to places where you get there, you're like, wow, look at this. You know, I can imagine myself riding this bike, going on a long road trip, and then finding destinations without a destination, but finding one.
Finding one.
Yeah.
Okay.
And ending up in a place that you're like, it's good to be alive. And that's what I think of when I ride this bike. Like,
Dude, you're giving me goosebumps, man.
I wanna go on an expedition. I wanna explore with this.
Well, the way that you're talking about this bike, I think you want to walk it down the aisle, man.
Kaya lang pangit eh.
He is shallow. He did admit that he was shallow.
Yeah.
He did admit it, so you can't take it against him. He did admit that he was shallow. Now, that would be Gino's 2 of his top 5, and I've mentioned already 3. So why don't we go on to your third motorcycle choice for your top 5 list for 2020?
So, okay, the next bike I would put, again, these are not ranked. So the XSR 155 is in the top 5.
Yeah.
The KTM 790 Adventure Standard is
Not R. Yeah.
Is in the top 5. And this bike is a bike that I had the longest in 2020.
Define longest. How long?
It was delivered to me.
Yeah. Oh crap! Was this post lockdown?
It was right. It was supposed to be
pre-lockdown.
It was supposed to be delivered to me before the lockdown, and then they held off. And then finally, when we were closing in on GCQ, they're like, "Hey, Gino, we can actually bring the bike to you now because it's just sitting here and it's supposed to be with you anyway."
Ooh.
So they delivered MV Agusta delivered the Brutale 800 to me,
Nice.
and because of the pandemic, the lockdown, they didn't have any events, they didn't have anything to do, so they're like, just hold on to it.
Sure.
I'm like, okay, not a problem. And I tell you, like, their tagline is motorcycle art. That's MV Agusta.
It certainly looks it.
It's gorgeous. It's such a beautiful machine. Not the most comfortable.
Oh, it's not.
Yeah, if you look at the seat of that thing,
Yeah, it looks odd.
it's odd, and there's a hole underneath it so
Yeah.
that you can see through it for some reason. So they really made it style over function, right? But the design, like the details, right? The way the tank looks.
Yeah.
It's just a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful machine. The
Triple exhaust.
Yeah, drop dead going on the. It's just gorgeous. The one drawback I have with it was the dash.
What about it?
Pangit. Like, it's, for as beautiful as that bike is, and you're like, why is the dash like this? Like, everything is perfect already.
Yeah.
That's why in the newer model they fixed it. They updated it. The instrument panel. But that bike, it's not the fastest. It's not the most comfortable. But it's just fun. It's just a bike and it's the entry level to MV Agusta. So it's not as intense as some of their other bikes.
This Brutale is the entry level.
To MV Agusta, yes.
Damn.
And it's not a MV Agusta. It's not a company that mass produces. They're not Yamaha, BMW, KTM. They don't mass produce them, right?
Correct.
It's specific. Like, it's not the one specific to the rider, but it's they smaller amounts. They manufacture smaller amounts. And when Motostrada brought them in, although they have been in the Philippines before, and the reputation wasn't that great, so Motostrada, when they decided to bring back MV Agusta to the Philippines, they wanted to do it in a way that the models they bring in are, stand out, and then they have the proper service, they have the proper, backing by MV Agusta in Italy. And they do. And so that they'll be able to take care of the bike. the service is not going to be a major issue. It probably still will be a little bit more difficult than, let's say, a Yamaha
Yeah.
or a Honda. But it won't be as difficult as it was before. And that's something that Motostrada was trying to accomplish.
I tell you about the Agusta. The first thing that really catches you for me is the triple exhaust down on the right side.
Gorgeous.
It's just absolutely gorgeous. Although I don't have a problem with the entire look of the bike. In fact, the headlight kind of reminds you of that one-eyed monster from Monsters Inc., Mike Wazowski. It's a massive.
It looks like a Porsche. The Porsche headlight.
It's a little dipped. Yeah, it's a little bit sort of like an oblong shape kind of a thing. But the one thing that I know about MV Agustas is it sounds very, very different when you start the engine up.
It does. And even when you're riding it,
I don't know if it's because is it because is it a dry clutch that's on the outside or is it wet? No, it just sounds very different. Like when it idles, it just sounds.
It even sounds better when you're riding it and you're using the quick shifter to go up. Right. I'll tell you what it sounds like. Remember the older Formula One cars?
Yes, massive engines, 8 cylinders, 10 cylinders.
During the time of Schumi, during the time of Juan Pablo.
Yeah, yeah.
That's kind of what it sounds like when you're going down.
Oh my goodness!
And then you switch out. It's like wow. It's a beautiful sounding machine, and that's what it does, right? It really tickles all these senses when you're riding the Brutale. You feel like you're going faster than you are, to be honest with you.
That's always a good thing on a bike.
And it's not a bad thing.
No.
Like, I remember being on the expressway and I'm riding with some people and I'm like, wow, these guys really, really ride fast. And I look at my speed, I'm like, okay, I'm not riding as fast. I'm at the speed limit. Okay.
So you're tame.
Yeah, so you feel like you're riding faster than you are. It handles very well. So I've taken the thing everywhere. I've took that thing to again Marilake, the expressways, Tagaytay, Cavite, all over. It handles very well in city, even though the turning radius is not great.
Oh, okay. So definitely better for taller people then.
Yeah, I mean even the bike's better for taller people. I'm on my tippy toes on it.
Yeah. Okay, which means forget about it when you're my height.
It's a little top heavy, so it's a little. You have to be a little careful when you ride it.
Okay.
But I've taken it on the track. I've done basically almost all I can do with a bike. I mean, it was with me for a long time. So again, it's not. I wouldn't say it's the best bike or one of the best bikes I've ridden, but it's the one that one of the ones I'm attracted to the most.
So this, you'd walk down the aisle.
Maybe. Kasi maganda siya.
I gotta say, when you first look at the motorcycle, if not for the exhaust, but the whole general design of it, it's really very, very different.
Yeah.
It's got flavor to it. It's got it is Italian design, if I'm not mistaken. So it's got oomph to it, right? Yeah. So it's very different. It's eye-catching, definitely, and it's enough that when a motorcycle passes you by, and the exhaust is so loud that it kind of vibrates the car that you're in, regardless of what speed that you're at. You could be doing 80 or 100 kilometers per hour on the highway.
Open pipe ba yan, no?
When it passes you by, and it just sounds very different, and when you get up close and personal to it, and I'm sure that you spend a lot of time with it, you could actually sit down and just stare at this thing.
I could totally just stare at it, and a lot of times that's what I did. Like if it was a ride that was just like, let's say, coffee meetup with some friends, socially distanced, by the way, and we pick places where we can park the bikes and we're right next to it or not far from it, right?
And just stare.
And if I stare at the bike, I'm like, wow, it's such a beautiful looking machine.
Yeah.
And it's like, what's funny is that I normally don't favor very modern looking bikes. But this one, I can't explain it. I was just so drawn to it.
How affordable are we talking here?
It's just under $1 million, so it's not cheap.
Ow. Oh man!
Like 980,000 Philippine pesos.
But at least it's over 100 horses, right? It's about 105, I think, something like that.
Close to that. But it's again, it's a little bit on the pricey side.
Yeah.
I think the remaining bikes that I have 3 left, are on the pricey side already.
But is it worth it?
This one, I can't do it because I can't afford to spend $1 million on a bike.
Yeah.
But if I could,
You would.
I would. I think any bike in my top 5 is something that I would consider already if the budget allowed me to.
So if you had the spare cash,
if I had the spare
definitely.
bike, yeah. So like if you're thinking about supercars like a say Ferrari,
Yeah.
it's the same. It has that same flavor for me. I don't know if it's the Italian thing about it. Although Ducati's more close to Ferrari in terms of, I guess, association.
Yes.
But this has that kind of flavor for me. Maybe Pagani, I don't know. But it's one of those machines that it's not the best at anything, except for maybe the looks.
True, because when you look at it, you can see all the tubes kind of like bend. It flows really well.
Yeah, like
it's one of those things that you just have to see, and if you can see it, it draws you to it. You want to go up to the motorcycle, you want to touch it,
you want to see it,
you want to get on it.
Yeah, I rode with some people who are on BMWs, who are on nice bikes.
Yeah.
The one that drew the most attention was this one.
Yeah.
Because they don't see it that often.
So this is definitely a bike
Yeah.
you want to get if you don't want to be looking like the norm. You want to stand out for sure. This would definitely be that bike.
Yeah, it would be. Or because I mean it's not common at all. And there's a few people who have loved the brand for a long time. But it has a very it's not a like an example, the R90, BMW R90.
Yeah.
Beautiful machine, beautiful bike.
Wish I could afford that one.
Yeah, but it's so common. There's so many of them. That's why people customize theirs.
With good reason.
With good reason.
Yeah.
With good reason, right? I mean, it's a good problem to have if you're a manufacturer.
True.
If you're the brand.
Yeah.
But this one, they go the other direction, right? They want that. It's almost like, let's say, I'll give you an example with the limited sneakers.
Okay.
Like, whether you're Nike, Adidas, or whatever brand out there, you come out with these limited editions, you're going to create more of the demand.
Yeah.
Right? So and that's what these bikes kind of remind me of. Okay. So it's kind of like the limited edition Off-White Jordan. I don't know. So it's something that's probably not... You're paying a premium for it because there's not that many of them.
I see. So we've got Jinno's top 3. Right.
I have 3 left. So
not top 3, but top 3 picks, rather.
Wait, I have 2 left.
You have 2 left.
Yeah, I only have 2 left.
You have 2 left. And I have 2 left as well for my top 5 favorite drives of 2020. And I'm going to throw it in there. I'm going to say that one of the 2 is most definitely the Kia Stinger.
Oh.
I absolutely...
It looks good.
It does look darn good. Now, maybe because it was an ex-Audi guy that designed that guy, and I fell in love with the A7 the very first time it came out. The fastback where the trunk opens and the glass comes along with it. It's a GT, so you're very comfortable inside the car. It's a little bit longer, so it's a stable ride. The technology inside the Stinger, and it's not priced like it wants to be absolutely exclusive. It's a little on the pricey side, but it's priced properly, I believe, for what the Stinger can offer you. It's a great looking car. It drives really well. It's got a great engine. Tech inside is actually pretty good. And the comfort inside for, at the very least, the passenger and the driver is top notch. The rear could use a little bit of help, but not bad even if you are tall, because even though it's got a sloping roofline. But the absolute look of this car when you're standing outside and staring at it. I mentioned it that when you're looking at it in the showroom, you will definitely give it a second look, a second take. But that second take, that second look might actually just be you picking up the keys and driving it out of the showroom, because it's gorgeous. And I had no problems driving it. I was very comfortable whether I was stuck inside traffic or when we were on the highway, which I didn't want to end. I just wanted to keep going. And it's surprising that it comes from a company that not a lot of people, clamor to immediately. It's a Kia.
Yeah.
And there have been jokes left and right said about Kia, whether it be in North America or in other parts of the country, that, oh, I drive a Kia. Oh, it can't be suckier than my Kia or whatnot. But in this particular car, man, that kills all that stigma, because it's awesome, man.
Yeah, I remember seeing that car for the first time, and I looked like 4 or 5 times, like, is that really a Kia?
Yeah. It's got that
like,
on it.
No way.
It's a Kia.
Like, there's something like, I don't know, man. Like, it's as far as from anything that I've ever seen from that brand. Mm-hmm. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. Like, I
think it's a great thing that it veers away from what you're normally used to. If it can create, let's say, for example, somewhat of a flagship automobile, and it's something to look at, and it's something to aspire for. It's not necessarily just a German car anymore that people will look after and say, "Ooh, I want that particular BM or that Audi or that Porsche or so on and so forth, Ferrari and whatnot." Not necessarily European, but now you've got a Korean car, something built in Asia that is readily available to our country too, that isn't priced exorbitantly, and it's got most, if not all, of the things that you could ask for when it comes to a GT. And at the same time, it's got space if you decide to bring your family along. So it's actually a great car. It's hard not to kind of fanboy over it, sort of like the way Jack and Earl go over like K-pop music and whatnot. It's hard not to love this thing.
Do you think, I'm curious what you were going to say about this. Do you think that it's because you're surprised it's that Kia produced something so awesome?
I am definitely surprised of the car because of the Kia badge.
Yeah.
I would have expected it, to be honest with you, I would have expected it from, let's say, from Toyota, or from Mazda.
Yeah.
But to come from Kia, it was a great shocker. It was a nice shocker. It was to look at the automobile and say, yeah, Kia's not just all about, which is what we know it for, more of SUVs and crossovers, or not more crossovers really. But now that you see this car, it's like, there's a new player around, and the fact that the car can definitely hold its own against those in the same segment, then that's absolutely great. It's great not just for us consumers, but the fact that this company Kia is actually pulling itself up and saying, yeah, we want to go against these guys, and they're doing a great job. They're not doing a piss poor job. No, they're doing a great job at it, and it shows in the Stinger.
Yeah, because usually when I think of Kia, I think of practical, right? These are the words that come like affordable, fuel efficient. Never have in my experience with cars and motoring did I ever go like, wow.
To a Kia. you never thought that you'd put the word hot and with Kia.
And then when I saw that car, I'm like, oh my God. And that's why I think for me it looked attractive, but when I saw the Kia badge, I'm like, it made me want to know more about it.
Definitely.
It's one of those things that's why I asked you about that, if it was a shock factor because it's a Kia, and because that's what it was for me. Mm-hmm. Because I'd never in a million years would have thought that Kia would have produced something like that.
It's gorgeous.
Yeah.
And you know what? But, we got it in red.
Yeah.
But if that thing were in black or white or even orange just for you, that thing would still look great, man.
But Okay, so when I think of cars, like a car has to be as enjoyable for me sitting in EDSA traffic as it would be on the expressway.
Completely.
It needs to be as enjoyable for me. Otherwise, I'd rather take a bike.
And this thing is both.
Okay, that's where I was getting at. So you don't mind sitting in traffic with this car?
No, not at all. There were other cars in my list that I would say that I would mind, definitely mind. But as we get closer to some of my more favorites, the Stinger in traffic, not a problem whatsoever.
Yeah.
So definitely not, let's say, for example, your Brutale.
Yeah.
I don't think that you want to get stuck in traffic on a Brutale.
Yeah, I mean, but I can maneuver through the traffic, but it's
But standstill traffic is what I'm talking
traffic.
about. No.
Yeah, I want to be moving.
That's the traffic that I'm talking about. If it's standstill traffic
Although I wouldn't mind so much because I'm pogi ng bike. So, so you're just like, yeah.
That's it. Stare at me, baby.
Yeah, although nobody knows who's riding it because I have a helmet on, full with the visor down. It doesn't matter.
Just stare at the beast in between my legs.
Like, enjoy this. I want to share the way this bike looks with everybody.
So I've got my one remaining car for my top 5 list of 2020. You've got two.
I have two remaining bikes.
Why don't you hit you up?
So again, these are not in order.
Yeah.
So I guess I don't need.
Neither are mine.
I don't need to justify which one comes first or not.
Yeah.
But I am gonna also go with a bike specifically because of the way it looks. It's the most impractical bike, maybe the impractical machine out there.
So this would be my F-150.
This is kind of this is your F-150, but for all the different reasons.
Oh, okay.
Right? This is exactly your F-150 because you can't even put a pillion. You can't even put a back rider because it's got one chair, one seat. Not chair, one seat, sorry. It's not comfortable.
Not comfortable.
No.
Even for the single rider that's on it.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah. Its tank is 9 liters.
What's that gonna get you? Up and down EDSA? That's it?
I went to Clark with this bike and I had to fill up twice.
Dude, that's embarrassing. I love it already.
And it's just a machine. You're like, okay, you really are useless.
But you're pretty.
But you're so pretty.
What is it? Tell us.
It's the Bobber of Triumph. It's the Triumph Bobber Black.
Triumph Bobber Black.
Yeah. It costs almost $1 million. It's also expensive. It's kind of like the Brutale choice, right? It's because of its looks and not because of the functionality. But the Brutale is more functional than this. Like the Brutale, you can enjoy it more on the racetrack than this bike. This bike, you would ride around the city, and that's really what you would probably use most for the bike. Because if you go on a long ride with this thing with 9 liters, and you can't find yourself. You can't find a gas station. You're gonna be in trouble.
I gotta say though that this was some time ago, and Jinno actually allowed me to sit on this bike, and darn it, I fell in love with this bike because I can flat foot it.
Yeah,
and it is gorgeous.
It's really good looking.
But I did not realize that this sucker only has 9 liters of fuel.
And it has enough power. It has all that kind of. It performs fairly well for what it is.
It looks like a brute.
It is. I mean, it's just that the image of riding the bike is really what sells it. It's the best-selling bike of Triumph in the Philippines.
This is the best-selling bike of
Triumph in the Philippines. As great as their Bonneville, as great as their other bikes are, this outsells them, and it outsells them specifically because it looks awesome.
Well, you look at a picture and immediately you get it. Why?
I was in a showroom the other day, and they almost sold the bike without even the guy testing it because he just looked at it and he was like, "Wow, I want that bike." You were there, yeah. Jack was with, yeah.
Jack was there.
Yeah.
I saw that he looked like he had money.
So he had money, and then
he walked in and he was almost ready to buy it, and then the guys in Triumph was like, "Sir, maybe you want to test ride it first." And what then?
What did he say? Oh, okay. If you really need me to test it,
so
but
I guess he
screw it,
test rode some of the other. I guess because they wanted to make sure that he really wanted that bike and not any other Triumph, right? It's useless. The bike is so freaking useless,
But
it's just so gorgeous.
you said it's not comfortable. It
not
doesn't
comfortable.
have a great fuel tank.
There's- yeah,
but it
there's-
is low to the ground.
Yeah, you can't even put a saddlebag on that thing.
Yeah, because there's nowhere.
There's no place to put it.
That's right.
If you put a tank bag on there, it might look silly.
But this is the type of bike where you just slap on a pair of jeans, a t-shirt,
Yeah.
your gloves on, forget the jacket,
Yeah.
get a half helmet, put your sunglasses on, maybe a small little shield for your mouth for the bugs,
Yeah.
and that's it. You drive.
Yeah.
And it's the kind of bike that you walk up to a cafe and say,
Absolutely.
I don't have money, but you will give me food and water.
Well, if
because
you have
of the
this
bike that I drive.
if you have this bike, you probably have money because it's close to $1 million.
Ouch.
I mean, put it this way: if I ever own this bike, it means I have enough money to have another one.
Okay, so it's definitely not your only bike.
Yeah,
It is a second bike.
It's a secondary bike.
What if your first bike's actually a Vespa? Would you get this guy?
I would use the Vespa very similar to this bike though. Like it would be
Sparingly.
it would be my city bike.
Okay.
Because you can't. You can, but you have to know where the gas stations are when you ride
How
out.
sad that this bike, something that looks this gorgeous, is only good for the city, where
I know,
unfortunately
I get it,
you
I get
can't
it. And it's-
open her up.
and it's you know it's 1,000. You know it's 1,000 cc. I mean it's the power is there. It's just that you. Okay, I've taken this bike. Like I said, I took it to Clark.
Yeah.
Man, so there's parts of NLEX that have bumps, right?
Yes.
By the bridges.
Yeah, correct.
By the.
Did you fly over them?
Dude, I literally my ass flew from the seat.
Crap.
And I landed on it and I'm like, thank God I'm back. And it's not like I was going excessively fast.
Okay.
It was just that it's bumpy. I mean, it has a monoshock in the back. But because bobbers traditionally they're hardtail. So there's
Yeah.
they don't have the shock in the back, right?
Yeah.
But this one they wanted to try to make it as comfortable as possible, and that's why they hid the monoshock underneath the seat.
So, dude, if you're already saying that it's somewhat bumpy, and that's on the highway already, and I gotta say that the NLEX is actually
Pretty smooth,
smoother
yeah.
than what we're used to. So if I'm thinking,
But there's only like 2 spots in NLEX.
regardless, I'm thinking if you travel at 60 kilometers per hour on the streets of Metro Manila or Cebu or Cagayan de Oro, which can get bumpy,
Yeah.
this thing is
It's
not the
comfortable.
greatest
It's
idea.
it's not comfortable.
So you gotta drive around the city at like 40 kilometers per hour.
But well, in Davao you can only go 40 kilometers per hour anyways, 60 kilometers per hour.
which is why I mentioned Cebu and
Yeah,
Cagayan de Oro.
Yeah, but there's a term in the bike world that people say tiis ganda,
Tiis ganda.
and that's the epitome of the Triumph Bobber Black, and it sounds freaking awesome. You start her up, and it's like, Jack, you will agree with me. When the first time you started that bike, what was your reaction?
I almost cried.
Yeah,
He almost cried. Jack
I'm not
almost
I'm
cried.
not exaggerating. When I rode it just around the block, it was like a life-changing experience. I'm not joking.
So you're telling me that when Gino starts this motorcycle, it's like eating a bar of chocolate that you've never had in your life. It's life-changing
It's like
kind
the
of a
first
thing.
Chocolate bar ever.
First chocolate bar ever.
yeah.
If you can take out the innuendos from that.
He literally rode it around the block, and it looked like he was kind of walking with it.
Straddling it.
He was straddling it. He was waddling. But Jack's much taller than me.
Yes.
And it was like, okay, he's being extra careful with it. Great. But you can almost see the smile on his face through his mask.
It is, I gotta admit, it is definitely a gorgeous bike. And I think I'd agree exactly with what you said. It won't be my first motorcycle, but if I had the means for a second, it would definitely be a second because of just simply the way that it looks. I mean, I even love the side mirrors on this thing. That's how cool it is. And whether it's not comfortable when you're driving it, when it is standing still and you just sit on it, the seat's actually pretty comfortable when it's not moving.
When it's not moving. It's when you can feel the bumps, put it that way.
Yeah.
You can feel the imperfections of the roads in Manila.
True. But I think like your previous motorcycle, the MV Agusta, this thing, you said it right by simply saying, made the thing talaga. And it really does. So, the color black on it and it's low and the wide seat.
I've yet to find that bike that blends, let's say, the Brutale or the Bobber Black with the KTM 790. Like, you know what I mean? The functionality of the KTM 790.
So you want a tall
there's nothing that
a dual sport.
No, but they still don't look as good as and the Brutale and the Bobber Black are very different looking bikes, but I just love the way both look.
I completely get what you're
But you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like, and I'm choosing those two specifically because of the way they look.
Yeah.
Well, the Bobber more because the Brutale, the performance of Brutale for me is superior. But I like the 790, the KTM 790 Adventure.
Yeah.
I'm picking that specifically because of the functionality and not because of the looks.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's different, right? It's different in that sense. Like, it's an ugly looking bike, but everything else is perfect. Whereas the Bobber, it's super useless, but it's just so pretty.
You know, I'm glad you actually said those things because the last car that is it the last car?
It's your last.
My last, excuse me, my last car on the list of top 5 for 2020. Actually, we haven't even, as we're recording this right now, we're still in the process of shooting this particular car. But
So how do you know you're going to love it?
Because I've had it for the past 4 months.
Oh, wow.
4 or 5 months, if I'm not mistaken. And it's going to be ridiculously painful to let go of this bike. Sorry, this car, not bike. Sorry, this car. Because
I've converted him. Yes.
it's got what it is that you just simply described earlier about the motorcycles. It's got looks and it's got functionality at the same time. And it's very difficult to find fault with it. I can, which I'll point out some now, that some people might say that it's a fault, but some fault in it is the fact that it's an in-between car. It's how I'm going to describe it as the middle child.
Okay.
You've got your favorite eldest child, you know, si kuya or si ate, whatnot, and then you've got the bunso, which is the cutest one. And sometimes you don't know what to do with the middle child. Sometimes it could be a rebel, sometimes not a rebel. But in this case...
Are you the middle child?
No, I'm the eldest, damn it.
Okay. I'm the bunso. Okay, go ahead.
Well, then this child that we're going to be talking about is the middle child. And it makes it to my top 5 drives for 2020, and it's the Mazda CX-8.
Oh.
And first off, it's a damn good looking car. It resembles the CX-9.
Yeah.
It's bigger than the CX-5, so this is why I call it the middle child.
Wasn't there a CX-7?
There was a CX-7. It's short-lived CX-7.
Yeah.
It kind of sort of like the same size as the CX-5.
Yeah.
So this CX-8 is what currently is the middle child between the 9 and the 5. It some people might actually look at this car and think that it's too pretty. It's too pretty to do some nitty gritty work of it being a 7-seater. It may not be able to handle a little bit of mud outside the city, you know, a little bit of off road. And while there is an all wheel drive option for the CX-8, what I have is the front wheel drive option of the CX-8. It's not the 6-seater, it's the 7-seater. And, you know, either on long drives, as we mentioned, or being stuck in traffic, this car, I ain't got a problem. No problems with it whatsoever. Yeah. If you decided to walk down the aisle with this car, I'd feel jealous. Even though I'm married, I'd still feel jealous because that's how good looking this car is. It's comfortable, and it's not like the CX-5, which is it's a bigger version of the CX-5, obviously, but it's not as robust as the CX-9, where the CX-9 is actually more on, say, driver-centered. The
This one
CX-8...
you can be both.
The CX-8 actually, it takes everyone into consideration, all the passengers into consideration. So it's comfortable for even those that are in the sixth and the seventh seat in the back. However, the gripe with it there is that it's not an all-wheel drive. See, you get into a car that's obviously this size, and it's just a few inches smaller than the CX-9. And if you've driven a CX-9 before, you expect an all-wheel drive vehicle.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, the 7-seater CX-8 is not an all-wheel drive. There is an all-wheel drive option that I mentioned, but that's only a 6-seater. It's sort of like it's like a limo, actually, in the back. But so I think that's the one thing that people might actually have a problem with, that it's not an all-wheel drive vehicle, which is what the top of the line Mazdas are known for.
Would it be a car that you bring on, let's say, I don't know, through mud, through, could you get dirty with it?
Oddly enough, we actually did. When we were filming the Jimny, and we had to go to places where, if you guys check out the video of the Jimny, we got down and dirty with it.
Yeah.
We did get down and dirty with the CX-8, and it's capable.
Really?
It's not so pretty that it doesn't know how to get dirty.
Okay, that's where I wanted to go with that question. So it's basically
It's an attractive, capable car
that can be cowboy.
that can definitely be cowboy. And the price is actually pretty good. If I'm not, it's at 2.3 or 2.4, somewhere along that line. It's priced very well. And the beauty about it is that what Mazda's been trying to do, I'm trying hard not to fanboy here, but what Mazda's been trying to do is it's trying to bring premium to the level where it is affordable. So you have your premium automobiles inside the country, right? Brands here and there. But what Mazda's doing is that they're trying to fight their big bosses, whether it be in Southeast Asia, that they're trying to bring affordability and premium in one package, and they've got it. They've got it pretty close to the CX-8, which is, as Jack just showed me, it's about $2.3 million.
Yeah. Would you agree with me?
Yeah.
That among the Japanese brands out there, that Mazda makes the most beautiful machines. Aesthetics, and just purely on looks.
Yes. Yeah. I would have to agree, and not just on looks too, because the driving position that they get you in, which is something that they've been working on for quite some time. The driving ergonomics and everything that's placed inside the car, the way that you drive it, it's actually pretty darn good. I guess the biggest complaints that I would have would be, let's say, the entertainment screen. It kind of sticks out like a sore thumb when you look at it.
Yeah, but Mazdas are like that though.
They predominantly are. So that's my gripe with it. The sound system's great. The ride is really, really great. It's a crossover, and this car, the line of the CX-8, it basically begs you to ask yourself the question: do I really need a PPV? There are some people out there that definitely want a PPV. They need a PPV, whether it be a 4x2 or a 4x4. But this car kind of sneaks in there and says, if you don't really think that you need a PPV, I can do everything else that you need to do for you. And it may not have the frugality of a diesel engine, because it's a 2.5 liter Skyactiv gasoline engine. So it's not going to get you 13 kilometers per liter like other diesel engines inside the city, or 10 kilometers per liter. So forget about it. You're not going to get that. You will get about 8.5, which is actually not bad considering that it's 7 seats. But I think its main selling point is the fact that it's so comfortable, because it is a crossover after all. So the ride comfort is there, and then you've got the comfort of the seats inside for all the passengers, and the fact that, as you mentioned, it can get down and dirty if it need be.
Yeah.
So it's one of my top 5 drives of 2020, and it's going to be a biatch for me to have to return the car.
First, here's my question. Why do you have it for nearly half a year?
Well, it is a long-term borrow. That's exactly what it is. Mazda Philippines gave it to me as a long-term borrow, and I thought that I was actually going to be okay with it for like a week or 2 weeks and get my kicks in. But then it was brought to my attention that if you were going to compare it, the reason why they also gave it to me is because we own a PPV.
Okay.
Our Montero is with us. It's a 4x4 Montero. So the whole point was to see is if we could see ourselves replacing our PPV with this particular automobile. And truth be told, there are certain times that I wish that we had this car instead of the PPV. But there are other aspects that I enjoy in my PPV. So let's say, for example, with the Montero, I like it more because it feels more robust. It rides more robust. So some people, and sometimes you really want that. But then there are other times that you want lighter steering and you want an easier ride. And you think to yourself, this car can do almost everything that my Montero can. There's still certain things that my Montero can outdo than the Mazda. So it begs the question that the basically Mazda said, okay, let's give it to Caco because we know he owns a 4x4 PPV.
Yeah.
But can that PPV, or rather, can this crossover, can this CX-8 compete with a PPV? And the answer is it really, really can.
All right, so let's go through your top 5.
Yeah.
What do you have?
So my top 5, including the honorable mentions.
Yeah. Well, no, just the top 5.
Just the top 5. Okay. The top 5s, once again, with, as I mentioned, the CX-8. Then before that was the Stinger. Before that was the Supra. Before that was the Ford F-150. And we started the entire conversation with the surprise for Jinno, as he says that it wasn't in my list, was the Geely Coolray.
Okay.
So that rounds up my top 5 drives for 2020, and you've done 4 of your. Can you run them by us again before you get to the top one?
XSR 155,
the 155,
the KTM 790 Adventure Standard,
which is like the Doomsday Machine.
the Doomsday Machine.
So hang on, the 155 was your starter bike.
Yeah. And then you have the Doomsday Machine, capable of everything but pangit.
Yeah, okay.
And then you have the 2 beautiful bikes.
You're blondes. That's sad.
Not a fan of blondes, but sure, if you are. The Brutale, the MV Agusta Brutale 800, and the Triumph Bobber Black.
Bobber Black, okay.
Right. So I have one left, again, in no particular order. I chose this bike because, well, budget-wise, it's actually quite friendly for the bike that it is.
Oh, okay.
It's got good technology, very, very good technology. Maybe in its class, it has the most. It performs fairly well. Maybe not the best, but it's definitely got some good performance.
Okay.
It comes from a very reputable brand, BMW.
Oh.
And, the 5-year warranty that BMW has is always...
That's always a plus.
It's always a plus. So... it has everything. The looks aren't my favorite in its category, in its class.
Okay.
But so I'm going away again from my shallowness of the looks of the Brutale 800.
How grown up of you.
And the Triumph Bobber Black. And this is kind of like the middle ground, if you were to say, if there's such a thing, between even though it's closer to the Brutale.
Okay.
But it's kind of like the in between. Like I can use this more. Let's say, definitely more useful than the Triumph Bobber Black.
Okay.
Trackable. Yeah, trackable.
What is this?
It's the BMW F900R Style Sport.
Damn.
Yeah, great looking bike.
Yeah. Should say
we've had 2 on MotoDeal. We had the standard. We had the standard trim and the style sport trim. I personally like the look of the standard trim more because it doesn't come in color, lots of colors.
Yeah.
It just comes in, it's a little bit more subdued with the black. The style sport only comes in one color, and that's in red. I like it because it has, to tell you the truth, I actually almost bought one.
Oh.
Yeah. And I decided not to because I ended up getting my bike, which is the XSR 900. So this bike, the F900R, it has everything, really. It has everything. The one drawback that people point out,
not so pretty.
it's not as pretty as the Brutale. It's not as pretty as the Bobber, but it has its own charm. right? There's people that like that kind of modern naked styling.
You know, I don't know. It's because of age, but I'm looking at this thing thinking it looks like Nighthawk. Remember that show?
Street Hawk.
Street Hawk. Nighthawk. Street Hawk.
Yeah.
Kind of looks like Street Hawk, and that's
But-
old, man.
Yeah, no. See, this is more modern, if you ask me. It has a modern look to it. It's again, it's not. That's why I'm pointing it out. It's not as pretty as the Brutale. It's not. I'm choosing. I'm using when I decide, and that's why I decided with the XSR 900 instead of this to purchase. Now this bike makes it to the top 5 because of the technology that it comes with. I sat on this bike, and Jack, you were with me in the showroom, and then they adjusted the suspension by a push of a button.
Oh.
Yeah. And I'm like, whoa, that's new. I've never felt it on a motorcycle before. Like, you can feel it. I'm like, whoa, that is really cool. So it has a lot of the technology that you would not expect something in that price range.
I see.
Like, most of that technology that this bike has, you'd expect it with over $1 million.
Okay.
Right. And this thing
is
just over 750,000 Philippine pesos.
Oh, snap.
For the style sport. It starts at 655,000 Philippine pesos. So for a BMW to cost that much, that's not bad, right? And the reason why they were able to bring the price down is because they use a Lonson engine. The Lonson, everything else is built in Germany. The Lonson engine is manufactured in China. But to the specs that BMW gave them.
Yeah, so it's back to that argument that we
why.
were having earlier where it's, like
So-
an iPhone or whatnot.
Yeah, so I mean, iPhones are built in China.
Yeah, correct.
Right, so
designed in California,
Yeah.
but made in
So
China.
that's something I wanted to point out because people have always said, that's it has a China engine, blah blah blah.
Yeah.
Like, sure, it was manufactured. It was built in China. Sure, it was manufactured in China. The engine, but to the spec that BMW Motorrad gave them,
Yeah, correct.
right?
Yeah.
So this bike does it all, right? It performs well. It's comfortable enough. Except I would say for somebody like me who's had so many injuries on my legs, on my knees,
Yeah.
that the foot pegs are a little bit on the high side for me. Even though I'm only 5'6", it's a little. I feel a little too tucked.
So your knees are bent a lot, is what you're
so
saying.
It's
okay.
it's almost sport bike feel, almost, but not.
Yeah, because you wouldn't be leaning over because the handlebars do come.
No, I mean you're still aggressive, very aggressive, sitting on this on a bike. Maybe not as aggressive as a sport bike, like let's say an R6. But it's still. It can basically, this thing can it can do everything that the Brutale can do, but has more technology.
Okay.
The TFT screen is the same as the GS, so it's the best in the business. It has maybe a little bit too much information. It can give you the lean angle that you're in. It can measure your lap times. It can give you all this information that it could be a little bit of a sensory overload to a certain extent.
You know what the bike looks like? It really looks like an adult choice. That's what the bike looks like. It doesn't look like the other motorcycles that you mentioned down the list. It looks more like a sensible choice.
It is a sensible choice.
And-
It is my sensible choice. And that's why it made it to the top 5. Because it has enough of the styling. I like the way it looks more than I do the KTM 790.
Yeah.
I like the way it looks more than the KTM 790 Adventure and even the Duke 790. I like the way this looks more.
Okay.
This has more technology. I like the way the Brutale looks more than this. I like the way even the Bobber Black looks more than this.
Mm-hmm.
But this has more function than those two, in my opinion. It has more technology. It has more function. So it blends in sort of the KTM 790 Adventure and the Brutale 800.
So this
It's the, I don't want to call it practical because it's still not practical, but it's leaning towards a practical choice It's not my favorite. Put it this way: it's not my favorite in anything, but it does
Yeah.
everything fairly well.
Because it really, just staring at the bike, the first thing that comes to mind is like the other motorcycles that you mentioned on the list would be like your 20 somethings out starting getting a new job, but still going out drinking, enjoying themselves and whatnot. Whereas the 900, the way that it looks and with the amount of tech on it, it sounds more like a guy that's, you know, been in the same position for like, let's say 15 years. You know, he coat and tie every day to the office kind of thing. Although it doesn't look like it's a coat and tie, but it looks very safe. And it's odd that you chose that particular bike to be a part of your top 5, because I was looking at like the choices that you already made, and there was a certain theme there. It was exciting. It was new.
Well, this is still exciting, right?
It is. It still is.
It's still very exciting. In fact, you can argue that this could be more exciting for some people than the Brutale 800.
Really?
Yeah, well, I wouldn't call it that, but some people might. But it's really, I was just floored, you know, by the technology in its price range. You're talking under 800,000 pesos, and everything that you know it comes with, it's good value.
Okay.
So it has that. When I think about bikes and where I rank them or what I like, you know, there's a certain checklist, right? The boxes need to be checked. Styling, comfort, tech, performance,
and it ticks all,
and safety. So this checks all of it.
All of it. All 5.
All 5. It's not number 1 in any, but it's definitely in the upper half of all.
Okay. Well, that is going to wrap up our top 5 rides and drives on Torque of the Town for Jinno and myself. If you want a rundown of that list again, we can probably publish something on the website and tell you exactly what it is. I will say this, though, just before we go, I expected the BMW R9T to be on your list, if not that, or the Scrambler.
So the BMW R90, the reason why it's not on the list is because I didn't actually take it out on a ride just yet.
Well, okay. Because to me, the way that it looks is just damn pretty.
Oh yeah, it's one of the best looking bikes I've seen.
Yeah.
And it performs fairly well, but there's certain stuff about it. We haven't shot it, right? So that I can't put it on the list.
Correct.
So I like the dash like shakes when you're riding. I mean, there's stuff about it that's a little strange. that of course when we do the video, and of course you can like and subscribe the YouTube pages of AutoDeal and MotoDeal, and the videos will be up soon. And when we finally shoot the R90, I do plan to take it to a special place where there's a lot of let's say old school BMWs in that location.
Oh.
So it's gonna have that kind of flavor to it.
I have an idea.
Yeah. So it might have been on the top 5. It probably would have.
There's always next year.
Yeah, but we have 2021 to do that.
That's right. And the one car that Jack pointed out that I didn't put on my list that he thought was going to be is the Jimny. And
I thought that would be there.
Yeah.
I really thought so.
And it's as much fun as it was, it's just it's a car more for the spry.
Okay.
I should say. It's fun, but
not for Tito Caco.
Not for Tito Caco. And not even I can't even see I can see my kids maybe driving around in it for fun if they were old enough to drive, but
you know what it's like?
Yeah.
It's like a Tonka. It's like a toy.
It is.
Right?
It's a toy, it's yellow, you just put the black tire out in the back, put Tonka on it, and you're good to go.
So that is it for 2020 Torque of the Town, AutoDeal and MotoDeal's podcast. And top 5 bikes?
Top five
rides, I should say.
Yeah.
And top 5 drives of AutoDeal, top 5 rides of MotoDeal. And we're looking forward to doing another top 5 next year.
That sounds like a plan, Stan. Folks, thanks to you for listening. Stay safe out there. We'll see you again Wednesdays at 10 a.m. This is Torque of the Town, powered by Podcast Network Asia.
This has been Torque of the Town, a podcast produced by AutoDeal and MotoDeal. To learn more about our products and services, head on over to AutoDeal.com.ph and MotoDeal.com.ph. as well as our social media pages, and of course, our YouTube channels. Talk of the Town is powered by Podcast Network Asia and Podmetrics. See you Wednesdays at 10 a.m.
The views and opinions expressed by the podcast creators, hosts, and guests do not necessarily reflect the official policy and position of Podcast Network Asia. Any content provided by the people on the podcast are of their own opinion and are not intended to malign any religion, ethnic group, club, organization, company, individual, or anyone or anything.